Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 15 of Old Guard versus New Blood, Majestic's monthly webinar and podcast. Thank you very much for coming along, guys. We've got a fantastic crowd, as usual, today to expert of panelists. Kev Gibbons, Antonella Villani, and Gus Pelogia. Did I pronounce that right, Gus?
Gus Pelogia, but
Pelogia,
usually
I'm sorry.
That's how most people pronounce it. So it's
okay. So I'm just with everybody else. So sorry about that. So guys, we're going to be talking this week about how to keep SEO clients satisfied. So you're all from the agency world, and before we start, what I'd love you to do is just say a little bit about yourselves. On the old guard, we've got me. And everybody else is young compared to me today. So I'm putting Kevin on the old guard side just because I've known him for 254 years. So Kevin, why don't you go and tell us about yourself first?
Yeah, that's fine. I've definitely been around in search a while, kind of getting involved in 2003. Initially, I've ran a couple of agencies. So
you were what, 7 at the time?
Yeah, exactly. It's a good age to get involved. So yeah, and been involved since the early days, and currently running Resignal as a strategy-based SEO agency. So I feel like I probably am the old guard. I'm clinging on to my 30s by a matter of months, but I'm going to make the most of it while I can.
Congratulations, well done. Sticking it out as long as me and a bit. So Antonella, tell us about yourself. Where do you come from? And you know, those kind of catchphrasey kind of questions.
Yeah, sure. So thanks for having me. I'm Antonella Villani. I am a SEO group leader for ForwardPMX. Been in the industry for about 10 years, and at Forward for about 4 years. Work with sort of very different clients, mainly in the retail, travel space, and international, mainly.
Okay, cool. And Gus, you've been working with TeamWork for a long time, I think. So definitely we're counting you on the new guard. How long have you been at TeamWork?
Well, today's my second day at TeamWork, but I've been in the SEO world for around 9 years now. Over the last 5 years, I was on the agency side, now back to in-house. So, hope to help everybody to, find some ideas on how to keep clients satisfied.
Amazing. So, and have you gone into the office yet? I see you got the T-shirt already.
Well, I haven't been to the office, and I don't think I'll be in a long time. I will be fully remote. So even when things are back to normal, this is going to be my office. So yeah. Haven't been to the office is going to take a while.
You got the T-shirt, so that's all you need. So congratulations. Okay, and if there's anyone in the audience, we're streaming on Facebook, we're streaming on YouTube, probably streaming on Twitter here now. In the background, I've got my producer David. David, is there anything I've missed out so far that I needed to talk about?
No, not at all. Everything going smoothly. So that's great to hear.
This is a first. That's really good. So. Old guard, new blood. How to keep SEO clients satisfied? It's been a long time since I've been agency side. I used to run an agency way back in the noughties, but not since then. And I've got to say, I got one of the reasons I moved. Tool side was the stress of running an agency. I didn't find it easy. I found it quite hard. So I'm going to be very interested to hear what you guys have got to say about keeping clients satisfied, SEO clients satisfied. Sometimes they can be quite demanding. Sometimes they can seem to switch off and you can't talk to them at all. So before we dive into some of those ideas and some of those thoughts and some of those tips, if people haven't got time to stay here for the whole lesson, the whole podcast, maybe you can give them one tip of how you keep SEO clients satisfied. Antonella, why don't I start with you?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, the easy thing is delivering results. As you know, that normally keeps clients happy. But yeah, but besides that, sometimes even if things go well, sometimes clients can be still, but maybe unsatisfied. So I think for me, for us, it's very important to listen to clients' expectations, what they need, and yeah, really listen to what they need. What they need to sort of, progress within their company, and making sure that they've got all the tools that they need.
Cool. Kevin, same question to you. One takeaway tip right at the top of the program.
I think alignment is a big one. It's understanding what their goals are internally, and not necessarily just their expectations of you, but understanding. We've had clients where we've known to the point of what their targets are and how they trigger a bonus. The more you can understand about them, the more chance you have of putting all of your efforts behind smashing their goals and making them look good. And I think that's the thing. It's having that mentality of, it's not us against them. You're on the same team. Let's work together. And you can't do that if you're, I don't know, if you're being targeted on, say, ranking visibility, and they're targeted on revenue. It's like, how do you get alignment as closely as possible, and then work backwards into a hierarchy of KPIs?
Okay, might come back to the KPIs a little bit later. Gus, any tip for you from you?
Cool. On top of what Antonella and Kevin already said, deliver your reports on time, and make sure that you have some good news there. It's aligned with the stuff that they want. So even if you're just going, you don't have the full answer yet, but here's the plan, how we're gonna overcome something. Reports on time, and a report that matters for the client.
Okay, cool. All right, so some good ideas in there. If there's anyone out there on YouTube or Facebook that wants to ask questions, please feel free. David in the background will be taking those, and we'll try and get some of those on. If you're not on the live session, then sorry about that. But hopefully a question or two will come in. But I wanted to dive in a little bit and start by saying, is keeping your clients happy in part about getting the right clients in the first place? I mean, do different agencies have a different profile of client that suits them, or do you find that it's the client is put on your plate? They could be from anywhere, and then you have to align your goals as you suggest. Do you, Kevin? Do you have a particular type of client that you like to have, without alienating the clients that don't fit into that mold?
Yeah, I do all of our new biz, and I feel like I reject a hell of a lot more new biz inquiries than I do proceed with. So, and I think that's really important, because you need to know, like, our model really is to work with a small group of typically kind of medium to large brands. It's not to be an agency that works with a large volume of, say, 40, 50 plus clients. We're more kind of a sweet spot of 12 to 15. So I think for us, and I'm not saying that's the right model, it's just the one that we've picked. I think for us, understanding what's our sweet spot, who are the clients that we can work with, and everything that we do from the new biz stage through to working together and the strategy and execution is all about what's the opportunity for growth. And if there's no opportunity for growth, the answer is, let's stop talking. You should be looking at another channel, or it's just having that honesty. So I think in the early stages, it's really important to set up, what does that success look like? Don't just give them expectations that win you a contract. You've got to be able to deliver on it. I don't think it's any benefit to the agency to have a client that you can't deliver on, because that's going to be hard work for the agency, and you'll end up getting fired. So let's set up in the early stages what success looks like, form a strategy that can help you to hit those targets. And yes, like anything, not everything is going to go 100% to plan, but at least there's an opportunity there that you can work backwards from.
Okay, so Gus, any ideas on your sort of your choice of client, or are you kind of, you get them put on your plate, or you're only in day 2, so you don't have to answer that question if you don't mind.
No, I think I can talk a lot about I just moved in house now, but I had all of those years in the agency side. So I think normally like the filtering that we would do is in terms of, those are our fees. So we already know, even before we start putting a proposal together, if the client would be a fit or not. And then, and as the next stage, we're going to discuss what is success for them, what we can do, and kind of put a plan based on what they're paying. And also just find who in the team is a fit for, a certain type of client. So if it's going to be very heavy on technical, we have someone that loves this kind of stuff. So you can, direct your team as well to get the best person for the job.
Okay. Antonella, any other things to add in there?
I am very lucky. I love I'm lucky with my clients. I got a sort of great selection and get on well with them personally as well, which obviously helps. But
and you said at the start as well that your vertical you're in the travel vertical and hard vertical right now. But anyway,
retail and a bit of travel, yeah.
Yeah. But you are already self-filtered by vertical anyway because of your agency and the size of your agency, possibly.
Yeah, absolutely. And besides that, I love a challenge. So if there is, a difficult client or somebody that might be too demanding, or I am always sort of happy to try to turn them around. So.
Okay. So I think out of that, everyone, I heard a lot about defining success and aligning goals and stuff from the team here. So how often does that not happen? I mean, the KPIs that you say that you take at the start, when you're starting to agree those KPIs, how often is it that that the client's KPIs, or if the client's got any KPIs or any ideas for KPIs, how often are they, completely unrealistic as a place to start? Who wants to jump in?
I can. I think it does happen quite a lot, but by sort of educating the client, that's something that can be sort of overcome. So I believe a lot into sort of education, spending time with the client, training them, and getting to understand more about what is realistic within SEO specifically.
Okay. Anyone else there? I had one client once where my job was to be number one for the phrase World Cup betting, and I only made number 3 by the deadline. Did I take on an unrealistic goal 20 years ago?
I think we've all been there, haven't we? With there's different things that you learn in terms of the KPIs that you agree to. We've had some performance models in the past based on rankings that actually some of them have worked quite well, but it feels like in hindsight maybe that was a bit of a fluke. I always say from the agency side, if I'm speaking to a prospect, I either need a target or I need a budget. And I feel like if you can have a target and you can make that whatever you like, it could be 500% growth. And if we think there's an opportunity to do it, then we'll tell them what it takes to do that. It might cost a lot of money. And likewise, if they've got a budget, we can tell them what we think we can achieve within that budget. I think you just need to set some boundaries around what is realistic. And obviously you can then put some forecasting together and you can look at the competitive landscape and try to be reasonable and realistic about it. But yeah, I think it's that bringing together of, okay, what are your objectives from a business perspective? And then bear in mind that SEO is a channel. You do want to see short-term results, but I think most people these days, at least, are kind of more willing to understand this is a long-term sustainable channel that you're trying to build. Yeah, kind of medium to long-term, not so much the quick wins that I feel like everyone wanted in the past. People still want that, but I think they're more realistic in their expectations. So yeah, I think
maybe you've just got more mature clients.
I actually think we have from the past. Yeah. When you asked that question, I was like, in my head, I don't feel like we've had any shockers for a while. But maybe that means there's one that's long overdue. I don't know. But no, generally, I feel like people are more realistic versus if you go back a few years back.
So Gus, when you were agency side, what did clients look for mostly?
Yeah, I
rankings
mean,
or traffic?
I think I moved away from looking at that. That's kind of, that's a nice to have. And if you can tell a story around that to say, we're getting the leads that you want, we are not getting it, but look how close we are getting with the, better rankings or something like that. We use that, but ultimately, that's not what makes the money. I think it's very important to set those boundaries from the start as well. So, you work or with a goal, this is the amount of leads or sales that I want, or this is the budget that I have, and then you start building based on that. Because you don't want to have that conversation, after 2 months, and that you're going to have a conversation that's going to be really tough, and the client might leave, and we have to find a new client, or maybe you hired someone. So I'd rather just be upfront and avoid that awkward conversation in a very short time.
So Mark Scully is, I think, watching on YouTube and asked us, what are the immediate red flags when you've got a potential client and they're getting in touch? Have you in the past missed any red flags at the beginning, but then ended up having to walk away later, but after you've done the deal, basically, from clients? So what are those signs?
I can start here. I had one just a few days before I left, or a couple of weeks before. We were working on a pitch, and this client, we had a call and we discussed the proposal, and at the end of the call they were, can we also have a proposal on this, on this, and this? So they asked for another 2 more channels, and they wanted more details on how some things would be done. They didn't show up for the call. Initially, I think they show up 1 hour later. So even before, I don't know if they will become a client or not. But at that stage, you already know that even if at that stage that we are, first meeting, they're not showing up and they're asking for a lot more things before they kick off any work, that's already a sign that it's going to be someone that is difficult to deal. And sometimes you have, another client that have pay the same fee, but it's more reasonable to work with. So we kind of try to balance there.
Okay, Kevin, Antonella, anything to add on to that? No. Okay.
I've got one thing to add, which is we've built a pre-qualification scorecard, and the way that works is we've just learned from the past of the people that we work well with, or the brands that we work well with, and there's a number of different things that would be factored into that. One thing that I think, I wouldn't say we wouldn't enter if this was the case, but RFPs generally are, I've seen quite a lot of very broad RFPs where people are just shopping around, and yes, they will choose someone, but if you're on a short list of 10 agencies, generally it's not a good time investment for the agency. I would say on our side, unless we know someone and they're coming to us for a compelling reason. And a lot of what the clients that we work with, and again, because we have a relatively selective client base, they're typically people that have heard of us before. We might have met them at a conference event or online, I guess, these days. But I think knowing those people definitely helps. Another of the red flags sometimes, and again, agencies can make this work. We've made it work in the past, but we found from experience the more owner-manager based businesses, where it's the owner-manager that owns that relationship with the agency, I found typically hasn't ended as well as if it's a marketing manager or a marketing director with their own budget to spend. The owner-managers are spending that out of their back pocket, and quite often they're the ones that want immediate results. They want to jump on a call in 10 minutes to discuss everything, and I feel like it messes with our structure of how we get the best results for clients. So again, there's exceptions to every rule, but in general, I feel like that helps us to pre-qualify and understand, are they a good fit?
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. That RFP thing is probably a double-edged sword, though, isn't it? Because an RFP, if somebody's putting a proper RFP out there, the chances are there's bigger business to be had at the end of the game. Or am I naive in thinking that? I mean, and Antonella, you're a big agency, so I would imagine you're working with RFPs quite a lot.
Yeah. I think the sort of as I think Kevin mentioned before as well, like a big part of the selection is there opportunity to grow here, and is there opportunity to give them performance, make them happy. So maybe you can add other channels or other sort of or other parts of SEO as well. So I think that's a very important pre-qualification part. Yeah.
So I mean, on the idea of setting up alignments and setting up the right KPIs, I remember having this a conversation years back around the same sorts of lines of how do you charge for your services, and KPIs was well, we don't really want to charge on rankings. What we wanted to charge on is what you mentioned, Gus, tracking leads. But one of the challenges, particularly with organic, is I found, and I don't know if things have changed, that plenty of people, everyone's happy to sit there and say, yes, I'll pay based on leads or tracking leads or whatever, but they can't track the damn things. Basically the leads come from their website. They've got no idea which ones came from PPC, no idea which ones came from social, no idea certainly which ones came from organic, and certainly not which keyword started the whole query. So Is it realistic to set up KPIs that are based on sales or leads, or have things changed on the tracking score?
I think tracking can always get complicated. There's I don't know, GDPR, or the cookie is just being triggered later and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you kind of need to pick something as the source of truth, and choose that as your go-to. I think the fee won't actually change on our end, and if you're using the same, you can still show progress or decrease. So that's kind of where usually how we go.
Okay, so basically whatever's here today, whatever you choose, then make sure that see if there's progress from that point. So whether it's visitors or whether it's leads or whether it's rankings, being able to show progress over time. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, Kevin and Antonella, anything on that? This tracking problem. Do you find that on a regular basis, or do you go hell for leather to stop that being an issue?
I think maybe on the B2B side of clients, that's a way more recurrent issue than maybe on retail, where normally they got their tracking sorted. But in terms of KPIs, I think it's quite important to have a mix of KPIs, because for instance, if you just look at sessions, might be, I don't know, a brand increase, a brand interest increase or decrease, that might sort of influence that quite majorly. Or maybe, I don't know, shopping is now everywhere. CTRs for SEO might be going down as well. So I think having a mix of different KPIs will help definitely understand the progress, as Gus was saying.
I think that's probably a good idea for the customer, isn't it? Because if they just force you down one KPI, or if you just agree one KPI, most KPIs are quite easy to manipulate. If it's visitors to the website, well, hey, I can get a whole load of people from Fiverr.com to click on the site every day. Or if it's just ranking or whatever, then I can just manipulate some long tail keywords and say, here's 10 top 10s. So I guess a balance, or like a scorecard of KPIs, is probably a sensible thing to do. Would you agree, or would you rather, Kevin, focus on one or two specific ideas?
Yeah, we've actually implemented a hierarchy of KPIs. So there's prioritization, because not all KPIs are equal. If you gave me a choice of, do I want rankings, technical issue fixes, links, traffic, or revenue, I'd normally choose revenue. And I feel like our clients would normally choose revenue. And maybe there's a reason to choose another KPI, and that's up to them, and it's within their right to do so. But if you've got a hierarchy, you can say, this is our main target. Equally, a lot of our clients are in e-commerce. We've definitely had clients before where we've pushed them and they've said, our targets are traffic or revenue. And we've said, okay, well, which one's most important? because we can get you lots of traffic if you want, say, top of funnel awareness going into the blog, and that might be something that they'll actually prioritize and really like. Or we can make you a ton of money if we prioritize by value and the top converting products. And in that case, and in most cases, it comes down to money. So then we've got those prioritized, kind of KPIs behind what we're doing. And we can say the number one main goal is let's increase organic revenue. There might be things that you look to filter in or out, maybe brand versus non-brand, homepage versus non-homepage traffic, etc. You can get more granular with this stuff, but I feel like picking one main goal and then having a hierarchy to say, okay, well, let's prove that we're working towards this, and we are improving kind of visibility, we are improving traffic, but ultimately it's for the reason that we're improving revenue. And if revenue is going in the right direction, I'm pretty confident we'll retain our clients. So I think that's the main thing.
That falls in quite well with the concept of OKRs, which is sort of
Right.
objectives and key results kind of approach, because you can sort of hierarchy things and say, right, our objective is this, and we will achieve that if we have done this, this, and this, and this, and these can then be some other person's objectives. But essentially, you've mapped all the objectives and say, if everybody does what's said on the tin, then we would expect to get to this objective at the other end, or hope to anyway. So
exactly. So you reflect that with the team and their objectives, and then everyone's aligned.
Okay. So Paul Carey is saying, how often do you communicate, or do you recommend communicating with your clients? And should you use email or catch-up calls? How do you keep them satisfied? He also says, good luck, Gus, in teamwork. Says Paul Carey, how often do you recommend communicating with clients, and how? I'll send that over to you, Gus, since he named you in the question.
Cool. So I try to have at least one catch up a month and to have a call. Usually first week of the month, you send reports, and I have that booked already for the second week. It's always on the same day. So it's always in the calendar. They know it's coming up. So that's, if there's only that moment, at least one moment where you have some face-to-face contact with the client. I try to use, or I started using a project management tool, TeamWork, or any of the other ones out there. I think that's very good for long conversations and things where a lot of people are involved. Otherwise,
I think it's fair for you to plug TeamWork today. You're allowed to do that.
Cool. You can use any other project management tool, by the way. Not just about my company. But for me, it really helped a lot having a PM tool, especially because at some point I started working as a client lead or an account manager. So I had to understand what someone in paid social was doing, or what someone in the content department was doing. And if you're just trying to get all of those tasks by email, it can get lost at some point.
Mm-hmm. Antonella, Kevin, once a week, once a month, once in the blue moon?
That's a hard one, but regularity, I think it's very important, whether it's weekly, bi-weekly. It depends very much on the sort of size of the account, the type of, the amount of streamer works as well that there are going on, how many sort of internal stakeholders you might be communicating with, etc. But if, as Gus suggested, I think if we do use for most of our clients Asana, which helps sort of streamline a lot what needs to be communicated via email or via call. So that way you can just keep the calls to the most sort of important or top line conversations, and keep it clean, leaving the details to something like Asana or TeamWork.
Kevin?
Yeah, I think similar to for us. To a certain extent, sometimes the clients dictate the communication. So how do they want to be communicated with? Some people like to jump on a call to talk through an issue. Others prefer just to deal over email. I think as a general way of working, we probably have a weekly call where we go through kind of quick updates, and it's just in the diary as a scheduled recurring meeting, just to have a bit of a cadence of just catching up and understanding what's going on. There might be weeks where we skip a call because we're just working together or holidays, but absolutely we'd look at things monthly. One of the big things we've brought in that I think really helps is we have QBRs, and so quarterly business reviews. And what we found from those is that helps from our side. So actually my involvement from the client perspective is typically in the new biz and maybe forming the strategy phase, and then in the QBRs. So I can go back and say, okay, well, this was the goal that we set at the start. How are we doing? And on the client side, it's similar. You might have a marketing director or CMO that's involved in choosing you as an agency, and they want to oversee and understand what's going on, but they don't necessarily want to be in the day-to-day or even the monthly meetings.
Okay, so let's dig into that QBR a little bit more then. Is that a reflective thing internally, so you're looking at the account internally, or is that something jointly done with the client?
I know it's jointly with the client, but there's a prep stage internally where my involvement is sometimes to kind of challenge and support the team and just say, let's bring it back to, this is what we said we would do. Where are we? What's on track? How's the performance going? What are the learnings? What do we need to do more of? And even coming up with new ideas.
I love that you say challenge and support. It's if you challenge, they sound like opposites to me.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what the situation is. In general, I would like to say, this is great, go for it. But if it's not great, then I would also like to say, let's fix it. So and I've definitely been involved in both sides of that. The other point I was going to add is sometimes agencies get fired for doing what they said they would do. And what I mean by that is you need to come up with new ideas, and you need to say, actually, this is something that's going on right now that has happened in the industry, or we've seen this happen with other clients, and we think you should try this. And we're in a very competitive space. There's tons of agencies out there. And I know that there's a lot of agencies pitch in for our clients. And if they're going to them and saying, this is what's happening with Core Web Vitals or anything else, just like, this is an idea that you can be sometimes as an agency too rigid and say, this is a 12-month project plan. Let's follow it to the letter. And I feel like having the QBRs is a good place to say, these are the big things that are happening right now. These are the trends that we haven't necessarily thought of before, but let's try it, and let's take maybe a certain percentage of that budget as more experimentation to keep pushing forward. And clients, I think if you come to them every month with new ideas, they'll get annoyed. But I think if you come to them every quarter with new ideas, they really appreciate that you're thinking about them and you're applying, kind of new concepts within the context of what you're doing to try and grow, learn, and improve.
Okay, so Mark's got an excellent question, which I've got another question I'm burning to ask, but I'm going to jump in with Mark's question. How do you set boundaries with clients? Because I think it's an excellent question. Some tend to forget you're not a full-time member of the team and expect immediate follow-ups at all times. Or alternatively, they always want to talk with the managing director of the team or the head of the department or the person that's got the least amount of time or should not be the one that's necessarily at the coalface. So how do you set those boundaries? Any suggestions for listeners on that front?
I think it is a hard one. Obviously, I think we're pretty much all been in that situation. But I think, being honest with the client and letting them know what is sort of acceptable and what is not acceptable. It's very important. It depends as well on the sort of situation you're in. For instance, you're launching a new website, you're migrating a new website. I think to a certain extent that immediate communication is expected, but then when going back to the sort of day-to-day work, I think it's totally fair for us to let them know, that this is not urgent. Let's pick this up on Monday, or
Okay. Kevin or Gus?
Sure. I think normally I just try to put expectations on, maybe if they're asking too many things, just to tell them this is how long this thing is going to take. And I always try to put follow-up dates on things. So if I say, we're going to deliver this by next Friday, I try to give some more time so the team actually has time to do things. Usually at the start, if you're kind of getting to know the client, you try to measure how hard it's going to be or how demanding they're going to be, and try to align, are they actually, do they pay the certain amount of money, so they can be this demanding, or I try to look back at, are they requesting too much? Maybe they're not. Maybe we're just not delivering on time, or maybe they're allowed to because of the size of the business or things like that. But usually, if it's something really big that I know is going to take a lot of time, I try to explain to them, look, this is a week of work. We can't deliver before this. If we deliver before, it might not be good. So the clients that are very demanding, if they know that there's a risk that what you're going to do is not going to be right, and you're telling them it's going to take a bit more time, usually there's a bit of a battle, but you find a middle term there.
Do you use time trackers, Gus? Do you track your time?
Yes.
You do.
Yeah,
okay, so you track your time, so you can tell if you're over quoting for a customer, or if you're spending too much time on a customer.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes we try to balance the task. So maybe we said, something would take 4 hours, but maybe 2 hours. We just took 2 hours to actually learn how to do that thing. So I try to balance, so we are not charging. We are charging the value of that time.
Okay. So you don't necessarily charge as ads, but you do record the time, or some did agency side. But I guess if you're to the other two as well, and I don't want to get away from the rest of the question, but if you are tracking time, it becomes easier to have that conversation with the customer. But I know that not everybody tracks time. Kevin and Antonella, do you guys track time?
We do, yeah. I think as a general rule, it's kind of we try to set expectations over deliverables of what are we going to deliver that month. But if a client comes with a new question, when you ask that question, my initial reaction was just set up a premium rate phone number. that keeps their questions short, which I'm kind of joking. But I think actually the answer to that is, I think project managers and account managers are really underrated within agencies, and it's sometimes the client doesn't always see the value, and sometimes the agency doesn't always see the value. But when you take them out, that's where the scope creep happens. And I think if you've got, our model is to pair a project manager alongside a subject matter expert, who's typically an SEO strategist, and if that type of request comes up, it's then the project manager's job to say, yes, we can look at that. However, this is what we're working on right now. Would you like us to stop doing that and do this? Or we could look at that, but we think it's going to take X amount of time, which would be quoted at this in addition. So either delays what you're doing, or there'll be an additional charge. To bring back to the seniority point, one thing you can do, and in general, I don't really like to go too granular with pricing, but you could have a tiered rate card. So if they want to speak to a senior director as opposed to a more junior exec, they absolutely can, but there's a different price and a rate behind that level of seniority. And it's the balance between, you give the client what they want, but you don't get to push too far that this doesn't make sense for the agency as well. So I think there's different ways to set those boundaries. I think initially you might say, if it's a quick job, yeah, sure, let's just do it. But there's a certain level where you don't want to be petty about things, but there's also a certain level where you do have to draw the line and say, actually, this is going to have an impact of what we're doing and how much time we have scheduled for you.
Yeah, and I think as well, as we were saying before, using tools like Asana or any other project management tools really helps to highlight the dependencies as well between tasks. So as Kevin was saying, okay, we can do this, but we're going to have to push this back by, I don't know, a month or 3 weeks or whatever that is. So yeah, as well as the project manager person, the tools as well help a lot to have that communication.
Okay. So Jason Cook has asked a question as well, saying this is going to be a barbed question and very hard to answer, but I'll throw it in there because we're running up against the clock already. So what's the minimum amount of time or budget that you feel you should spend on a client to move the needle, even for very small clients? Well, that's an interesting question, and I don't want anybody to feel that they have to answer that in absolute terms at all if you don't want to. Is anyone willing to jump in? I know you're all going to say it depends. It's just written all over your face, isn't it? Well, so okay, so I'm going to say what they would have said if I was guessing. I would say, well, the ForwardPMX are a big agency, so they won't do anything for less than a couple of £1,000 a month. Gus, I don't know what the agency you were working at before, so I don't know so much about that. I would say that Kevin is sitting there trying to get at least 4 figures a month out of a client, and that's my guess. Am I a million miles off the truth? I don't know. No, that would be my estimate. I think that I'm gonna go in and because I don't want to say it depends. I don't like it as an answer. But I do remember when I was back at Receptional, I undercharged clients. We had a minimum monthly spend of £500, and that was way back. And I was 10 years ago that I stopped doing that, or at least 10, 12 years ago, more. And when I moved on, and the rest of the and it got taken over by Justin, who took over the business, the first thing he did was sack all of my clients because he couldn't make any money at that. So I would put it to you that £500 a month is too little, and anything above that, it's you're going to need something above that. I don't know. Anyone want to add something a little more contextual and relevant to the 21st century?
One option that we sometimes do is say, if they've got a small monthly budget, actually look at how we could maybe consolidate what would be an annual budget into more of a consultancy piece, and would say, let's turn this into a shorter sprint on the basis that you get the work quicker. It's more senior in terms of the people that you would get. However, from our side, we're only involved, say, for 6 weeks to 3 months, and we'll help them. We'll set them on their way. I just saw the comments are not £150 then. I mean, you could do a phone call, but again, it's like, what value would you get from that premium rate? Obviously.
£150 will fix your tap. So compare yourself to a plumber at least.
Yeah, that's the thing, and it's understanding the value. I think for us, there's a cut-off point, and we quite often refer maybe other agencies or freelancers that we think could do a good job on that budget. So it's not that people can't make it work. It's just we've kind of had to carve out where we do our best work.
No. And I suppose, freelance, recommending good freelance as well is obviously a good opportunity for very, very small businesses. But maybe also maybe if the client has got resources available internally, for instance, I don't know, rather than writing 10 million metadata, you can, train them, and that could be, I don't know, a fraction of the price, and then get them to do it. So that way they can keep the costs down.
Yeah, I think for us would be something a little bit in this direction as well. So if maybe a client is not, doesn't have the budget to commit to an ongoing strategy, we can work on an audit plus strategy and give them here's a plan for you to follow. That usually, sometimes it's just initial conversation, so they can see, there is value behind this, or maybe I can execute some of this, or I need you guys to continue. So you kind of go, that's a way to get the client in without making that commitment, without getting the money or making them commit to money that they don't have.
Mm-hmm. I think I used to head towards training, to getting people into training, whether on either training the organization or getting a group of people in and then getting on a training course is a way of dealing with the smaller budgets. So at least they can see what the work is that's involved, if that's the case. So okay, if you go down the budget, then you're going to start to give people reports. But do people just read reports? Do you find clients read audits or SEO reports as a general rule?
Not sure. Probably a very long audit, they don't. So we always try to put together like an action register, and then you refer to the points, and that's usually where you go. Really, that's where the information is. My previous agency, Wolfgang, usually would do like a post-audit report as well, so we can go through with the client on these are the actions that you have to take, and this is why, and kind of explain in lay terms why something has to be done.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Kevin and Antonella, do people read reports, or you spend your time writing these things and then get really depressed when they didn't even read the report and tell you off?
Well, I think sending an exact summary as well as maybe adding some numbers to it. So, okay, if you do this, this is likely to happen. Always sort of help to pick the attention. But also, what we do as well a lot within ForwardPMX, we try to sort of remove the barrier of maybe the client trying to speak directly with developers using, like, I don't know, Jira, where we raise tickets directly and then we sort of look at the implementation, report on that, etc. So I found that that's why if we remove that sort of barrier, things get done a little bit more quickly. So it is a frustrating thing. So have you read that 45?
An agency communicating with the dev team is always a challenge, isn't it? So especially if they've outsourced the dev team as well. So then there's. But
I think even there you can build that relationship, and especially if you're present as a consultant there as a part of the team, but somebody with more sort of SEO experience. So I think it has worked well. Yeah, it is a challenge, we know that, but it has worked well as well.
Yeah, one thing we've done is we've set up Google Data Studio dashboards with different personas. So if you're a CMO, really all they really care about generally is how much money have they made per market. So if we can show them kind of organic revenue by territory or key markets, that's important for them. We'll have personas maybe for our more day-to-day contacts. It could be around competitive metrics. So how's visibility going against some of the key competitors in their market, specifically for key categories that we've been focused on. And then maybe more of an action-based, these are the SEO issues, so stuff like pulling in from Search Console to say, these are the things that need to be fixed and addressed for the SEO team. And then everyone can get their level of detail, they can drill down. We've had one client before that has asked us to put one line into their, this is a marketing director, one line into their report that goes and gets presented at the board. And I love that, because then it's like, okay, well, rather than a long report that doesn't get read, we've got one line of SEO is now on the board agenda. And if we can adapt and align ourselves with their targets and show this, at least it opens that conversation. It might only be a line, but it might turn that into 2 lines kind of further down the line if it's on that agenda.
Cool. We're nearly out of time, guys. So as Mark had one other question, I'm just going to ask it quickly, but I want one word answer if I may. So would you ever work with a company that's been let go, that you know has been let go by another agency? Kevin?
The one word answer is yes.
Okay.
And do you want me to explain why? I just think
I'll let the others go one way answer as well, and then you can jump in, Kevin, with the why.
Sure.
Gus?
I would say yes. It's probably I was never in a position that I would be the one to choose to say, these guys, we won't work with them.
Okay. Antilla?
Yes, because probably that we wouldn't know that they're thing from another agencies. I'm gonna say I didn't know about this.
So let's hear Kevin's anecdote then, because it's going to be a good story there.
Well, no, not so much. It's more, I think there's not a good fit for everyone. So it could be there's good clients, there's bad clients, but I don't think there's good clients for some agencies, there's bad clients for some agencies. And in the same way that, would you hire someone that's been made redundant? Like, absolutely, yes, because there's different circumstances. That means that someone didn't work out in a role, and would you hire them for your company in your situation? Yes, of course, providing that they've got through that kind of interview process. And I think it's the same with a client, that if you think they've got through your pre-qualification and you think they're a good fit, it probably wouldn't influence my thinking too much on how they got on with another agency. If you knew that agency, it'd be handy to have a chat with them, though.
Yeah, true. Okay, guys, we're nearly out of time. Before I ask you to sort of leave your calling card, David, what's coming up next month on Old Guard New Blood?
So next month it's SEO for eCommerce, and the date is Wednesday the 5th of May at 5 p.m. BST. That's 12 p.m. EDT, and we've got a couple of brilliant guests booked already. We've got Emma Russell, SEO Director at Slingshot Organic, and Christina Azarenko from Marketing Syrup. If you're on LinkedIn, you see her all over the place. So she's doing a great job there marketing herself. She's an e-commerce specialist as well. Sign up for those over at majestic.com/webinars. And of course, you can listen to the podcast as well on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the other good platforms. So if you're a podcast listener, make sure you search for Oh God, New Blood, and you'll find us there as well.
That's brilliant. So, guys, I mean, thank you very much for coming in. It's a fascinating topic, and actually, it could go on a lot longer. But before we go, can you just say where we can find more if anybody wants to dive in and pick your brains, or not, if you want to put them on a premium rate number? Where can they find you? On Twitter, LinkedIn? Where do they go? Antonella?
Yeah, so you can find me on
Antonella,
LinkedIn.
sorry.
No worries. That's the best of mispronunciation I got, so I'm fine with that. Yeah, Antonella Villani on LinkedIn, or you can send me an email, name.surname@forwardpmx.com. I'm all on all the other social media as well, but yeah, LinkedIn is better for work-related stuff.
Gus, where do we find you?
You're mostly going to find me on Twitter, so it's just @Pelogia, and yeah.
Okay. Kevin?
Definitely feel free to add me on LinkedIn, Twitter's Kev Gibbo. They're probably the best ones. Emails, just kevin@resignal.com.
You're good. That's great. Guys, thank you very much for coming down and talking to us today. Thanks for sharing your knowledge. We really appreciate it. And to everyone out there in interwebby land, see you next time. Thanks very much, guys.